and welcome back to Character Class. Today we're going to be going through the top 5 do's and don'ts for Game Masters. That's right. Uh, so let's get to it, shall we? Number 5, do create an adventure or a story. Don't write a novel. Now, what I mean by that is, uh, as a game master, you are the one responsible for crafting the game, crafting the world, the NPCs, and the story that your characters are going through. Maybe it's just as simple as a dungeon crawl. That's fine. A one-off little shot, boom. Those are fine. If you're going for a bigger campaign, if you're going for something that's going to be going on continuously, expanding adventure over several sessions, maybe even several years, you want to create that adventure. You want to craft it so that your characters are going to have a good time, that your players are going to have a good time. But you don't want to write, like with a novel, for example. The reason why I say don't write a novel, if you read a novel, that story's always going to be the same every time you read it. Things happen and they've been set out in stone. You don't want to do that to yourself as a game master. From personal experience, don't do that. You want to have the story be able to be flexible enough to encompass anything the characters and the players will do. And I guarantee you right now, no matter how much you think you have thought of everything, I guarantee you, you will not have thought of everything. A player will come along and be like, I do this. And you'll be like, well, what do I do now? Uh, they've just circumnavigated this entire scenario that was supposed to take them the next 3 hours to get through. Their players are terribly resourceful individuals and terribly unpredictable. So embrace that. Embrace that and don't be afraid to leave things a little loose, to give yourself wiggle room. All right, number 4. Number 4 is do be creative, but don't be a thief. Now, that might be a little harsh language, but what I mean by that is, as a storyteller, I frequently look to books, movies, television shows. I look all over for inspiration, for stuff that I want to include into my campaigns. But you don't want to blatantly rip things off because there's a very good chance your players also watch the same kind of stuff you do. So if you go and blatantly rip off this character with this particular desire and this story arc that you want to run with him, they may have seen it and may know ahead of time what you're doing. And that gives them an advantage. And I'm going to sound evil here, but as a game master, you never want to give your players an advantage. At least not like that. Um, you definitely want to take things, take ideas and concepts, and then rework them, make them your own, change them enough that you can have a player be like, oh, I know where he's getting that from, which means I'll be able to do this. And then they go and do this and they find out, nope, because this character's this way and not the way they thought. That's always nice to do. It's always nice to throw curveballs at players, especially perceptive ones. Number 3, do prepare. Don't wait until the last minute. Uh, this is a big one because uh, you don't want to have your you don't want to have your campaign, your players show up ready to go, and you have not gotten anything ready for the game. You're scrambling for your notes. You don't know what's going to happen next because you didn't plan it ahead enough. You always want to prepare for your sessions. Take some time, a few hours, maybe longer if you need to really hammer things out, at least in a broad outline way. You don't have to go into too much detail. See back to number 5, like I said, don't get yourself rigid. Have some flexibility. So But you don't want to wait until the last minute to do it, because there have been times I've been up till 2, 3 in the morning finishing up stuff I needed to do, slept poorly, and was a subpar game master for my players. And I apologize to them for it. And it's something I don't like to do. I like to give them the good times that they deserve. All right, number two. Number two, do talk with your players. Don't ignore them. Now, this has a couple of things with it. You definitely want to talk to your players because you need to. You're the game master. That's how the games work. But you want to talk to them as well about where they are looking to take their characters. Find out what they want to do in the long run. Find out how they want to progress, what they want to do, what their goals are, what their aspirations are. Find out what kind of stories they like. Do they like mystery? Do they like action? Do they like uh, political intrigue, uh, like Game of Thrones stuff? What kind of story would they be most interested in participating in? Find these things out and then incorporate them into your campaign. I like to give a little kind of a questionnaire. I'd be like, on a rating of 1 to 5, how would you rate your desire for this type of story, for this type of story, for this type of story? And go down a little list and then compare those numbers and then tailor your story to appeal to the high end numbers. Still keep other stuff in, but tailor your story more. Finally, we'll go to number one. Number one, do reward your players, but don't mollycoddle them. Now, what I mean by this is something I learned early on, way back in the days, when I really didn't even have. I played Dungeons and Dragons and didn't even have a Dungeons and Dragons book. All right, we were kind of just making it up from what we'd heard and been able to dig up information on, which wasn't a lot. But what you want to do is, when players are progressing through, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, for example, players will progress through and they'll be like, do. They'll go through a dungeon, they'll defeat a boss, then they find the treasure hoard. And it happened a few times back in the day where the players would get to this thing and I'd be like, roll for this and roll for the treasure. Oh, you get 5 magical items. Random roll for the magical items. And some of them would be quite powerful. And then I'd forget what they had, which would derail later campaigns because they had this powerful magical item that would just be like, zap, done. Uh, you don't want to give them too much. You definitely want to reward them for good playing, reward them with good experience, reward them with good treasure or artifacts or magical items in whatever game, whatever the kind is. You want to reward the players for playing good, for playing well, for being creative and innovative. You want to do that, but you don't want to give them too much. Because if you give them too much, then they end up not really appreciating the value of it, of what they have. And it ends up causing problems, just back and forth all over the place. So those are just my opinions. I hope they've helped you, and I'll see you next time.